Coming up on the Sky News Daily with me, Niall Paterson, the power behind the throne. How the royal family is increasingly being used to promote British interests abroad.
Donald Trump is heading back to the White House.
Together we can truly make America great again.
We are in for an unpredictable but fascinating 4 years.
And we're going to be following every twist and turn for the first 100 days. We'll be bringing you the latest updates and analysis first thing every morning. So join me, James Matthews.
Me, Martha Kalnick.
And me, Mark Stone.
For Trump 100, every weekday at 6 a.m, wherever you get your podcasts.
Prince William is on a 2-day trip to Estonia. The heir to the throne is visiting NATO's eastern flank to find out just how the country is responding to Putin's invasion of Ukraine. This, but the latest example of royal soft power. In essence, the use of tactics other than deploying the military to shape how nations view the UK and its strategic priorities. Think of the upcoming state visit to the UK by Donald Trump. All that pomp and circumstance, the diplomatic dinners and private meetings with the King. It certainly feels as if the power of the throne is being used by the government much more obviously than before. Rhiannon Mills is our royal correspondent. She's in Estonia. Rhiannon, exactly where are you? Because it does look lovely.
Well, we're really lucky because our hotel is literally right across from Freedom Square, which is why I'm standing here now. And yeah, it is a little bit noisy. It's so interesting because behind me you have the Estonian flag right next to the Ukrainian flag. They have been one of Ukraine's biggest supporters, and there is no hiding away from why the government wanted Prince William to come here, and part of it is also to reinforce our support for, yes, Estonia, but also Ukraine.
OK, so explain exactly what's happening. Why is the Prince there? Certainly some fortuitous timing.
So, look, royal tours are planned all the time. This one, I'm told, has been at least 6 months in the planning. And they always happen for a reason. Like, the royal family are always deployed specifically by the UK government and the Foreign Office for reasons of kind of certain countries that we want to say thank you to or reinforce our diplomatic ties. But sometimes you get trips like this one where the timing just feels more pertinent, more perfect. And of course, him being here in Estonia, the timing is ideal, especially when you talk to diplomatic sources over here. They are delighted that Prince William's come at this moment. So
this is an example of the soft power that I've already mentioned. In what way?
So, just to give you a bit of context about how people in Estonia are feeling at the moment, again, diplomatic sources were saying that actually there feels like there's kind of an increased anxiety since there's been all the discussion about the ceasefire between Ukraine and Russia. And the reason for that is because they believe that if there's a ceasefire, it might just give Russia time to kind of regroup, rearm, and then we could see more military action in the likes of Ukraine, but also here in Estonia, and they could potentially target other northern European NATO countries as well. So Estonia is really worried at the moment. So for the UK government and the Foreign Office, it's vital that they have somebody like Prince William, heir to the throne, future king, coming, having meetings with the likes of the president, going to a school that was specifically set up for Ukrainian refugee children. Basically, Prince William coming here saying, look, you have the UK support, you've got our backing. And also going tomorrow to see military troops who are based basically about an hour and 45 minutes from the Russian border to say his thanks to those troops, but also reinforce the importance of that NATO partnership.
Yeah, I mean, given the current geopolitical climate, given what the White House thinks of NATO, I mean, I can't imagine a more political step by someone that actually Donald Trump likes quite a lot.
Yeah, and that is what's so fascinating at the moment, isn't it? We have seen examples of how the royal family have literally been deployed, to choose a better phrase, cozy up to the new president. But also at the same time, the royal family have been really clear in their support for the Ukrainian people, for Ukraine, ever since the war broke out.
Just in terms of the practicalities of how these events are organised, twice now you have said the royal family are deployed by the UK government, by the Foreign and Commonwealth Office. I mean, is it that straightforward? Do we tell them, we want you to do this, and they go off and do it?
Yeah, they do. And there's a Royal Visits Committee, and I always imagine them sitting down with a big map and saying, right, who in the world do we need to keep on side at the moment? Who do we need to go and kind of cozy up to a bit? Who do we need to make feel kind of safe and secure and reinforce our defence links with them? And that's what happens. And then there's a grid, and the Foreign Office, the government decide where are the best places for members of the royal family to go to. They've obviously decided that Estonia is a country that needs that reassurance, I suppose, that they have got the UK's backing. But also coming up, we've got the King and the Queen going to Italy. And a briefing that I went to the other day, it was very clear that there is going to be a strong focus there in terms of UK-Italian defence cooperation. You're going to see flypast and all that kind of stuff.
OK, so there are royal trips. There are months, sometimes even years in the planning. But there are also ad hoc deployments of the royal family. And one I can think of most recently, President Zelensky, having been embarrassed in the Oval Office, comes to the United Kingdom and finds himself having an audience.
I know, it was around that time, it was so clear and visible in a way that we don't normally see it on display, that sense of the quiet diplomacy that the royal family can wield when it comes to these really intense and high stakes kind of diplomatic discussions that are going on at the moment. That meeting with Zelensky apparently had been planned before he had his bust up with Donald Trump in the Oval Office. But I think it was really important for the UK, for Keir Starmer, and also I think actually for the royal family, who've consistently shown their support for Ukraine, that Zelensky made that trip to Sandringham. And there were two moments where they posed for pictures, both outside, the King coming out to meet him, but also inside as well. What was interesting, though, is there were no TV cameras. So we didn't get to film or hear any of the interactions. And I think that's what's been quite telling around some of these, what you could call soft power moments that we've seen recently.
Why might that have been the case? Why would they not have wanted a camera in there for what was a meeting between, two heads of state?
Look, you have to remember that the King, he's a pro at all this stuff, so he's unlikely to make a slip-up. But you never know, do you? Sometimes there's a turn of phrase. Do you remember when Liz Truss went to see the King for an audience at one point, and he said something to her like, "Oh gosh, sorry, you're back again." And then that was completely spun in terms of what he actually meant. And actually it was because she'd been there earlier in the day for the Privy Council, as opposed to him going, "Oh, blimey, you're back again." So there's always that potential for kind of a little turn of phrase to be kind of taken out of context, I think. And look, you have to remember, you had the meeting with Zelensky on the Sunday. On the Thursday, you had just, I'd say jaw-dropping moment where Keir Starmer presented that letter of President Trump with the King offering him a second state visit, and then wielded it around in front of the press pack. And we all got to read that letter. We never normally get to see those letters. And for me, that was just extraordinary. But it showed how the King was really being used kind of to woo President Trump and continues to be, really.
Is this as political a royal family as you have seen during your tenure as royal correspondent, Rhiannon?
I think what's been really interesting is just how visible, like, these examples of soft power and the quiet diplomacy have been recently. I think you've got a different monarch who, if you talk about UK political matters, we've seen him engaging in things like talking about knife crime, taking the Prime Minister and Deputy Prime Minister to Nansledden, which is a housing estate, talking about housing and planning. Those were both things that I don't think you would have seen from Queen Elizabeth II. But also, it has felt like the King has wanted to be seen to be front and centre recently. Don't forget, he's met up with two Canadian Prime Ministers in recent weeks. Justin Trudeau at Sandringham, when he was also over for that Coalition of the Willing summit, and also Mark Carney last week. And that, of course, all comes in the context of Donald Trump talking about Canada being a 51st state and the difficulties in the trade tariffs that are going on. But the King, in a way, has wanted to show his ongoing support for Canada. While not verbally saying it, we've seen it loud and clear in the meetings that he's held.
Look, clearly, the King, a very different beast to his mother, but the Queen was, how best to put this, prone to using her soft power in some quite witty and amusing ways. What was the old story I seem to recall about the Queen driving one of the Saudi princes at speed?
Yeah, so 2003, I think I've got the date right on that one. There was a visit by the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, and she decided that she'd take him for a drive. Of course, he was against women driving. So that, I think, was just a perfect power play by Queen Elizabeth. Of course, we also saw in the way that she dressed at times, one state opening of Parliament where she was wearing a hat which seemed to kind of depict the EU flag, people were saying. And also, certainly since the war broke out in Ukraine, there were kind of subtle things like blue and yellow flowers behind her when she had some meetings and things like that. So her kind of soft power style, I think, was certainly different from her son's.
But there are dangers inherent in using the royal family in this way. I mean, Prince Andrew's role as trade envoy hasn't proved to be an unalloyed success.
No, and we've spoken about it before, haven't we, about how he's now potentially using the contacts that he built up during his time as UK trade envoy, and the fact that that role fell apart because of his links with Jeffrey Epstein. I think you're dealing with very different characters when you talk about the King and Prince William, not least because you're talking about monarch and heir to the throne.
Well, another way in which the royals can display their power is through the granting of royal status. We saw it most notably, I would say, with Wootton Bassett, where, of course, the servicemen and women who lost their lives were repatriated when we've been at times of conflict. But also we're hearing today that Barrow is going to be getting royal status as well.
Yeah, and that's because of their links with the military as well. And I think for the royal family, and we will definitely see this tomorrow when Prince William visits the 900 troops who are based at Tapa Camp, their links to the military, to the armed forces, to the troops, is, I think, they feel one of their most important roles in terms of celebrating, recognising what the men and women do within our armed forces, the sacrifices that they make. So yeah, important that Barrow is being conferred with that important status.
Rhiannon, isn't there a bit of a royal elephant in the room here, that whilst the House of Windsor most often deploys their soft power in pursuit of the goals as set out by Downing Street, by the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, they also use it to perpetuate the royal family? I mean, look at the way in which Camilla has been used by Charles, look at the way in which Catherine is defining William's time when he becomes king, and look at look at the way that the House of Windsor wanted to use Harry and Meghan before they headed Montecito way.
Yeah, and actually it was really interesting today talking to diplomatic and military sources. One military source said when he first came over here, the first conversation that he had was, yes, about Russia, but also about Monty Python. And it's that kind of peculiar thing of how the royal family helped to kind of celebrate brand Britain abroad. Another diplomatic source was talking about how here in Estonia, actually, UK TV has been really popular because they used to get their TV from Finland, so they'd watch things like Yes Minister and Benny Hill and Keeping Up Appearances. But I'm told that here in Estonia, they're really excited about Prince William coming here. They showed the coronation on TV over here. Part of that, I suspect, look, internationally, people don't talk about their constitutional importance. They look at them as celebrities. They are one of the most famous families in the world. So, yeah, I think that is also one of the reasons that they're important for the UK government, because they don't just connect on that diplomatic level. Keir Starmer came here before Christmas, but he didn't carry out a walkabout like we're going to see Prince William carrying out later on, shaking hands and getting to know people generally. And that is really powerful, I think, when it comes to connecting with members of the public, showing that the UK cares. But yeah, of course, also, as you alluded to there, justifying their existence, justifying why some would say we need a royal family.
Rhiannon, thank you. Just a reminder, if you like the podcast, then do follow us on your app. That way you'll get the daily downloaded to your devices just as soon as it's available. Should only take you one click. That's your lot for today. The Daily is back again tomorrow.
The world is becoming increasingly complex and volatile. How can we make sense of it all?
I'm Richard Engel.
And I'm Yalda Hakim.
And we present Sky News' latest podcast, The World. Each week, we'll cut through the noise to guide you through the week's global events and explain to you why what happens out there matters to you wherever you are.
We're on the ground in some of the world's toughest places. Listen now to The World with Richard Engel and me, Yalda Hakim, wherever you get your podcasts.